Hey, hey, hey. It's filter free Friday, y'all. Listen, I'm so glad y'all here. Y'all know the Detroit Lions managed to pull out a victory over the Kansas City Chiefs. So here I am in my Detroit finest faux buffs with the fake wood handles and the cute little gold accoutrements for your viewing pleasure. Now, the next time the Kansas City Chiefs play the Detroit Lions, you say you heard it from me that we gonna whoop the brakes off of 'em. So there that is. But for today, here I am doing my filter free Friday with these buffs on. Does anybody know why people in Detroit wear these things or why this became a thing? If you do, please share with me. Uh typically I try to worry about myself and tell stories about myself and my lack of empathy throughout the years and how it has shifted over time. But for today, honey, stick with me for a little story time because I want to talk about um, this teenage boy, John Sheeran, who tried to drown a black child, and I want to talk about Republican Senator Tim Scott, who now all of a sudden understands that there is systemic racism in the world. But first, a little story time. I have a few people in my life that our relationship is one sided, that I give whenever they need, and I'm the person they call to take from. And I was talking with my therapist about being empathetic, and she said to me, um, Nicole, well, I need you to be empathetic, okay? I need you to try to stand in their shoes for a minute and imagine that every time you need something, that you got somebody you can call and they give it to you. And when you don't give it back, there's no repercussions for that. And then they give you a little lecture, and then the next time they want something, you give it back, you give it to them, and then you tell them that you want the nature of your relationship to be one where the relationship is more than just transactional, and they say yes, 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 yes. And you say that you want a relationship where sometimes they call and just check on you, and they say yes, 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 yes. And then every time they call you, they don't do none of that. Or if they do, they might call and check on you the day before they call to ask you for something. She said, if you put yourself in that person's shoes, what would you do? Like, would you change anything? And I think sometimes, um, even I struggle to recognize that empathy is understanding and seeing um, people for who they are. And that means recognizing when someone is selfish and a user and an abuser and all those things, as well as stepping into the shoes of another person and recognizing that they are inherently good. It's both and. It's both and. And there's one story here in the United States of America that has troubled me since the moment I heard of it. Khalif Browder was a teenager when he was accused of stealing a backpack for which he did not take. Khalif Browder was sent to Rikers Island, one of the nation's most notoriously dangerous prisons. And he was there for almost 3 years, if not three and a half. I meant to look this up. And abused, beaten, some of the most horrific things I can possibly imagine happened to Khalif Browder while he was waiting for a trial to determine if he were guilty or not. You see, Khalif Browder did not have money for cash bail. He got out of prison and became an advocate to talk about the importance of abolishing the cash bail system. You see, that's a law, you see, that we would need to say that forcing people who are in poverty to pay for their freedom when they have not been proven to have committed a crime would be illegal. And there are people in the world who say, I don't need laws. See, you need to go to church. We need God. We don't need laws. But see, empathy makes you recognize that in this country, we have needed laws to tell us we can't work people 24 hours a day. We have needed laws to tell us that we can't put lead in paint. We have needed laws to make it such that we can't put too much weight on a train to uh, create these large crashes. We've needed laws to not pour environmental waste into the air. We have needed laws to tell us that children should not be dipped in chemicals for our tests. We have needed laws for everything. We need laws to tell people they can't leave their children at home unattended if they are under 12. We have needed laws for everything. And so Khalif was pushing for laws against cash bail systems. The trauma from whatever happened to Khalif Browder was so great that he ended up taking his own life via suicide. This week, John Sheeran, 14-year-old teenage boy, knows knows that a black child cannot swim. He has on a life jacket because he cannot swim. John Sheeran takes this opportunity to try to drown this boy, and he calls him George Floyd while he is trying to do it. There are witnesses to this attempted murder. John Sheeran was released into the custody of his family. Now, where do you think the agents of socialization happen? Who do you believe are the people who give us some of our first thoughts about what is beautiful and right and acceptable, if not our parents? How much do you think they have seen if this child is trying to drown another human boy? What do you believe they have seen him do to animals? What do you think they have been mortified by when he has done it in their home? And I'm not telling you that I think we should be in the business of putting children in prison. I am telling you that this system is hypocritical. And when systems are hypocritical, we need laws to protect people because the systems that are hypocritical tend to be hypocritical against Black and brown and poor and disabled and all other folks that are on the margins of what we consider to be good and real and acceptable and beautiful and normal. Which takes me to our legislators. My fellow African American brother Tim Scott says that the United States is not a racist country and systemic racism does not exist. And his Republican colleagues decided that they were not going to continually fund his campaign because they don't know why he's single and he won't say why he's single. They start to insinuate he's gay. Now, here's what I want us to think about, sugars. We've got so many issues with people because of who they sleep with or what gender they believe they are. And listen, if sexual orientation and gender were so natural and innate, why you got to fight to keep it what it is? If it's natural and innate and it's what you are oriented towards or the gender you appreciate and value, why you got to fight hard? Because let me tell you what, love. It's real natural for me to want to get 8 hours of sleep. You ain't got to push hard for me to get them. You got to work hard if you want to keep me up past a certain hour. You see, innate things, biologically natural things, are things you don't have to force. You don't have to legislate against. And what I'm coming to see is that the trauma that gets passed down to people based on their ancestors, if it does not get addressed and handled and pushed out of our bodies, we pass it on to other people. And so when you go over the history of what has happened to our white American brothers and sisters here in this country, what pathology has gotten passed on to you when you watch your granddaddy lynching somebody and then go to church on Sunday? What pathology gets passed down to you when you can stand on the shores of West Africa and watch people pulled from their families, cousins and sisters and brothers and mamas and aunts and uncles and fishermen and preachers and hunters and gatherers and businessmen, just stripped apart, pulled together, put in the bowels of slave ships, um, made to do all their bodily functions with each other. And your family, your ancestry, your elders, they watched it. They were the perpetrators of it. They were the ones who socialized it to be normal. What gets passed on to you? And I feel sorry for my white brothers and sisters who do not do the work to get that trauma out of their bodies. We always talk about what's the trauma to Black people. What is the trauma to you? What has gotten passed down to you that you need to work through? Because my question is, what happened to this child, John Sharon, that would cause him at 14 years old to try to drown by holding down a Black child? That is lynching passed down through the body, if you ask me. And if you are not doing your exercises, your centering exercises, if you are denying the fact that racism exists, then here we are. But you wonder, why am I talking about this after the story time related to Khalif Browder? See, Khalif didn't have no money. So he had to spend 3.5 years in Rikers Island with some of the, I don't even know what happened to him, accused of stealing a backpack. But when your skin is a different shade and your money is a little longer, then all of a sudden you've been given over to your parents because, let me see, let me make sure I got it right. What did his lawyer say? This is just boys engaging in horseplay that has gone too far. Since when did we start calling overt racist behaviors horseplay? This is why you must have legislation, see, because if you don't make it illegal for me to drive 110 miles an hour, people like me, we're going to do it. We're going to push the limits of what is acceptable and natural and normal. You know, Tim Scott said, he said, you know, they suggesting I'm gay because they can't say I'm Black. What is this now, sir? You see, empathy can't sit on a bed of hypocrisy. Did you just mention your race in this anti-racist America that you live in? Did you just mention your race? Then he says, this is sounding like 1963 and not 2023. So let me just, for the purposes of illustration, if we are talking about things that happened 60 years ago, and you think it sounds like that, why do you think that is, sir? Let's just be a little curious. And whenever people come to me and they say, Nicole, this empathy thing you're doing, it just, it seems like you off brand. The reason they think it seems like this kind of thing is off brand, because they think empathy means being kind. They think empathy means being nice. They think empathy means making space for foolishness. They think empathy means not having boundaries, allowing people to use you, not paying any attention to the fact that Khalif Browder is treated differently than a John Sharon. It is not calling Tim Scott on his hypocrisy. That's what people think empathy is. But you know what empathy is? Empathy is putting myself in your shoes. See, you see, because if I put myself in the shoes of a John Sharon, whose parents who have had money, whose parents live in a town with bigots and who have said bigoted things and who have likely watched me do things and continually gotten me out of trouble, who have said George Floyd deserved to be murdered in front of all of us, who think Officer Derek Chauvin should get off. I'm 14 years old. If I put myself in the shoes of that boy, why would I do anything different than try to drown a black boy? You see, empathy says put yourself in that person's shoes. Don't assign good motive or bad motive. Let me put myself in your shoes. See, my daddy gonna get me off. I just saw a picture of a law school class for 2027, honey. It was hundreds of people in the shot, and I think there was like four black people, four and a possible. And here's what was in the comments section. You see, this is what law school class is supposed to look like when you ain't got affirmative action. It should be based on merit. That's the comment of a person who thinks that black folk just dumb by skin color, just shouldn't be lawyers by skin color. That understand and know that when you have homogeneity based on race at the highest levels of the judicial system, that you can continue these racist acts and the entire system will support all of your bigotry and prejudice. Folk want to talk about indoctrination, and folk want to talk to me about what does it look like to be treated unfairly. Huh, some folk got the lock on it. So when I think about my beautiful black brother Tim Scott, and I know I should be worried about myself not talking about this man, I don't even know him, but I'm just holding him accountable to what he said in his interview, which is what the campaign trail is. Which, just saying your interview, sir. You see, it pays to be anti-black in this here United States of America. You want me to get a whole bunch of white friends? You want my home to be full of my white neighbors? Let me say, I don't see color. Racism is not a thing. I see people for people. I make that statement, I have more friends over here than I can count. If I stand up in on any of my platforms and I say, what racism? We all God's children. I have all the white friends I want. See? But if I am honest about the fact that not in criminal justice, not in healthcare, not in education, not in banking and lending, not in real estate, not in any institution in the United States of America do we have parity based on race. Not one. Then somehow or another, I lose all my support. And so if I know that's my experience, let me try to step into the shoes of a Tim Scott. You see, it pays for him. It gets donors, see, when he say, United States is not a racist country. And so, sometimes we know things to be true and we deny them. So last Thursday, I knew Travis Kelce wasn't going to play. I knew we were without Eric Bieniemy. I knew that the Chiefs sometimes will start out slow, and I knew that God kind of thought the Lions needed a little support. So here we are, making a bet with my Detroit friends, even though I knew that there was some likelihood that they might squeak out a win. And sometimes we know things to be true. And we know it ain't gonna cost us much to let somebody feel like they done won. So here we are with our buffs on, supporting the Detroiters today because they won one game of the season. But catch me back here when it's time for the playoffs. And I will be able to show you very clearly what it looks like to have power and influence and an ace card called Patrick Mahomes. And this here racist system in the United States of America is exactly like that. It's the ace card. It's the quarterback. It is my prejudice, my bigotry, is not backed by institutional power and control. It's not backed by the laws that allow for cash bail. It's not backed by any of these things. And so, as long as I'm on this empathy revolution, we will tell the truth and shame the devil. It is Filter Free Friday, y'all. We got plenty work to do.